Hey guys, welcome back to JD Mods. In today's video we are going to be doing a how to change a timing belt, guides, and tensioner on a K20 series motor. And specifically what we're going to be doing is taking the chain, tensioner, and guides from this motor and putting them onto this motor over here. This motor is the one going in the car, but all this over here has the lower kilometer components on it. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. So the first and arguably most difficult step is taking off your crank pulley so that we can access the timing cover and timing chain. Now to do this, Honda sells a special tool to hold the pulley while you undo the bolts, because if not, all that's going to happen, I'll show you really quick here. If I go to loosen this bolt, the pulley is just going to turn, as you can see. So I didn't want to buy the $100 tool, so instead I made this little component out of a pipe from a hardware store. Now that simply just goes in the pulley like this, and then what I like to use is a big old monkey wrench to hold on to it like this, and then using my ratchet, put her in the middle, and when you go and take it off, it'll jam eventually, just like that, on the monkey wrench, and now you can go ahead and take off the pulley. So now we're going to work on taking off the timing cover, and we're going to start with the engine mount bracket. So this is just 3 14mm bolts. Now before removing the actual timing cover, remove this 10mm bolt for the sensor over here. Remove your crank position sensor with another 10mm bolt. Now with all those accessories off, we can go ahead and remove the actual timing chain cover. There's just a bunch of 10mm around the outsides, and also 3 on the very bottom that you'll have to get with an extension and a 10mm, just like 1, 2, and 3. So before you lose it, just go ahead and remove the little gear for your timing and set that aside with your cam. So next step is to remove the auto chain tensioner. This is of course an upgraded one. The stock one looks a little different but has the same principles. So what I did was just lightly install the pulley, and then what you want to do is grab a small Allen key like this, probably 1 to 2mm Allen key, and put your ratchet on your pulley, turn it counterclockwise to compress the tensioner, and then you just shove the key inside the hole. This aftermarket one's a little different, but once that key is inside the hole, just release the pulley and then you're good to take it off. As you can see there, I've removed the tensioner, which makes the left hand side go slack. Now the next step is to remove the tensioner plate up top. Those are just 2 12mm bolts right here and here. And then once those are removed, you can remove the guides if you are going to be replacing them. They have a hex key bolt right there, and the other side just has 3 10mm bolts. Once those are off, it is quite easy to remove the chain. As you can see, this is my old chain here, and there's your motor ready to install a new timing chain. So basically what I did now is made my new motor look exactly like my old motor by removing everything from the valve cover to the timing chain. So the first step is to set the crankshaft to top dead center, and this is done by aligning that dot right there with that arrow on your block. So the next step is to make sure your camshafts are at top dead center, and you know that is true when these dashed lines are pointing at each other in the middle, and there is a dot on the top of that one and an arrow with a dot going to the top of this one. So now it is time to install the timing chain, And as long as you have a new chain, you can see where my finger is, there is a black link. So we're going to start the install down here at the crank shaft. So what you want to do is find the black link that is furthest away from the other two black links. And this here actually goes lined up with a dot on your pulley on your crankshaft. So just loosely put it over, and then you can go ahead and line it up, and I'll show you when it's fully lined up. So as you can see, there's the crankshaft, and there's one gear at about the position right there with a dot on it. And now basically what you want to do is take your chain. I've got it pretty much lined up already, but you want to put that dot in the center of the black link, then just push it on there to make sure it seats on properly, just like that. There it is. And then basically just run your fingers along, making sure not to skip any teeth and chain links. And there it is. There's the chain installed on the crankshaft. Now we're going to go ahead and install it correctly on the camshafts. So there's how you align the chain on the camshaft sprockets. There's the other two black links that just cradle the dots. And if you don't have black links, the key is that there's supposed to be 7 full chain links in between the two dots. So the next step is to reinstall the guide. I actually kept this guide on as it can swivel very nicely, and the chain tensioners. So these are all torqued down to 12 Newton meters, and to do that I am using this little AC Delco electronic torque reader. So for example, when using a torque gun, you don't want to jerk past it, you just want to keep going slowly until you get your desired torque. And then as you can see, there's my peak torque, 12.1 Newton meters. Reset it. Now I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of them. Now go ahead and reinstall the guide on top of your motor, and these two 12mm bolts are torqued down to 22 Newton meters. So it's now time to remove that Allen key from your tensioner, and of course that will apply some nice tension onto your chain to prevent it from slipping timing. So now that our timing chain has been fully installed and the tensioner is on, what I like to do is to confirm that we correctly did the timing. So before even putting the cover or anything back on, I like to reinstall the pulley by hand, and then using a ratchet, we're gonna cycle the motor through one complete cycle. So now that the two lines are in the middle, you want to make sure the notch on your pulley is pointing pretty much in this direction here, and we can confirm the exact direction after installing our cover. But right now you can also look at the two dots on your cam gears. You want to make sure they're inside of a link on the chain, and that there is 7 links in between the two dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it looks like we're good. I'm going to go ahead and spin it once more around. You also want to check for any metal on metal noises or clunking, which would indicate a bolt that was dropped somewhere in your motor. Now with the pulley back off, install your timing gear, making sure the words outside are facing the outside of the motor. This just slides in your keyway and gets pushed all the way to the back until it butts up against the chain. Before reinstalling your cover, it is very important to remove all of the old gasket maker. As you can see, it is all along the entire mating surface, especially along the bottom. But because we don't want any gasket maker getting inside your oil pan, it is very important to grab a couple old paper towels or rags, and I'm just going to go ahead and shove those in the oil pan there. I'll do a better job in a second, but then I'm going to be using a gasket scraper and just scraping off all of the old black gaskets off the surface of the motor. I don't like using the X-Acto knife because it's so sharp it can actually dig into our block. So if you don't have one of these, I'd recommend picking up an actual gasket scraper. So once the mating surface and the plate itself is cleaned off, You have to add some silicone on the plate before reapplying it to the engine. And for this kind of job, I like to use this Right Stuff silicone because you could apply it and not have to wait any time before installing it. And I find it seals it up very nicely. You can pretty much run oil through it right away rather than having to wait 24 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and add silicone mainly to the cover instead of the block. And basically whenever you come across a hole, you want to put her on the inside of the hole, and also make sure to do all of these little extrusions and funny shapes. So there's the silicone applied to the cover. As you can see, I've applied quite a generous amount. It's a little thin in some spots and a little thick in other spots, but you know what? It'll be okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and squish this onto my motor. So I just went ahead and installed all the bolts very lightly with a torque gun. And now we're going to go ahead and torque them down by hand to 22 Newton meters, just like the ones underneath it. Now you want to do these in a star pattern essentially, kind of like you were doing a wheel on a car. So I'll just show you guys a few on camera. And now I'm going to go across. This is to make sure they get torqued down nice and evenly, so the gasket maker gets spread out properly. So I'm just going to keep doing this in small increments, maybe not going to 22 foot-pounds right away. And don't forget the 3 along the bottom and the 1 hiding in the valley right up here. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and install all the accessories again. As you can see here, I have the tensioner cover. I used a wire wheel to take off all the old gasket maker and just applied some new stuff, and also I just scraped off everything off of this mating surface here. So you're going to want to go ahead and install the cover as well as the sensor and the oil solenoid up top. And if you have an A2, there's a coolant hose that runs across to your water pump. So as you can see, I've reattached all of the accessories, and now it is time to tighten down the crank pulley. This is a very important step, or else obviously the crank pulley could come off under high RPM. So this gets a very high torque of 180 foot-pounds. So as you can see, I have my homemade $5 contraption on a monkey wrench. Then I have my big old torque wrench, and we're going to go ahead and torque this down to 180 foot-pounds. It is quite a lot of torque. Just like that. Don't go too much because you don't want to warp your crankshaft or anything. And there is the process pretty much done. So there it is. That is how you change a timing belt in a K20. I tried my best to have good lighting inside this garage as it's quite shadowy in here. The only thing I haven't done is put the valve cover back on. But that's quite an easy process. Mine's getting painted right now, so I can't install it quite yet. If you want to see this gold motor with a purple valve cover on it, that is going back into the RSX. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. This motor is going to be turbocharged, so I wanted to make sure that the timing chain was good before boosting it. So that is the end of today's video. I hope it was a helpful video. Hopefully you guys learned something. Please subscribe if you want to see more awesome videos. Thanks for watching.